Hey everyone, welcome to When Creatives Thrive, a Create Baltimore podcast. I'm Stuart Rustin, the host of When Creatives Thrive, and I'm super excited to be joined this week by Robyn Murphy, the CEO of the newly announced Create Baltimore. Create Baltimore is our new name and brand identity, launched this week with the blessing of the city and Mayor Brandon M. Scott under Robyn's leadership. Just as Robyn has created a space for us to connect with creatives and hear their stories on our podcast, this week we'll hear from her about her experiences in media, business, arts and culture, and most importantly, her vision for Baltimore's creative come-up and laying the groundwork for meaningful, sustainable growth. Before we get going, remember to like, comment, and subscribe where and when you can so we can keep sharing stories of Baltimore's creative community. It really helps us out. Hey, Robyn, welcome to When Creatives Thrive.
I'm so excited to be here. I watch you create this fun, amazing thing all the time. And so I'm really happy to be in this seat.
Well, thank you so much for being here. And thank you for creating this opportunity for creatives to be able to come in here and to express themselves. And speaking of which, I'd love to be able to give you that same space. Tell us about yourself.
I'm extraordinarily blessed to be able to work in a space where I have a lot of passion. And I've also been able to build upon the previous iteration of what I've done,
right,
in really strong and important ways. And it's weird. On another side of life, my husband is an entrepreneur and he owns multiple businesses. And I'm always sharing with him the importance of consistent reiteration. Even in corporate structure and how you do something and then you iterate it differently or improve upon it and make it better. And so I apply that same principle to career and the iterations of what I do. And so I think that I actually started my career in sports, but I've always been more interested in the way something shows up in society.
Right.
Anything, the how, the whys, the anthropology of it all. So when I was a sports reporter, just regular sideline, X's, O's, I became more interested in what shapes a society in sports. So I started to study sports and society, and I was probably one of the first people. I was certainly one of the first women sports reporters to cover sports as sports culture,
right,
not as X's and O's. It was deeply important to me to understand how society valued what sports brings to a culture, what it brings to a society, and by extension, the people in that area. So it would be more important to me to understand athletes from a standpoint of the cultural mark they're making on the world through sports.
Right. It's so much deeper than just a game, right?
It's so much deeper than a game. My entire graduate thesis was on the Allen Iversonization of sports. that was the title of it, because he was a culture shifter.
True.
In the NBA.
Oh, very much.
In so many, in a lot of ways that define how today's athletes get to show up as their authentic selves. And that was 25 years ago, right? And so maybe longer. I'm getting a little old.
No.
And so the principle of how a thing belongs in a culture is what led me down a path of working in arts and culture, because I believe they're all interconnected.
Very much.
And I'm so interested in understanding my space, my town, my world from a lens of how we all show up together and what makes a culture have a heartbeat and tick.
Yeah, super interesting and very important to the work that we're doing here.
For sure.
Is to understand how that web is woven together.
Yes, absolutely. Yes. And so to that point, I've been able to reiterate sports and society and sports culture into landing into theater arts and performing arts and in film. And so each time, when I would work, at a national outlet, I was more interested, even as a host, when I'm talking to celebrities and stuff, I was more interested in the cultural impact of whatever it was they were doing.
Right.
Whatever it was they were doing.
Yeah, that's, for me personally, like that's kind of the magic, right?
That's the magic. Yeah. The magic is not necessarily the film. The magic is the discussion about the film.
Yeah, and the little like kind of ripple effect.
The ripple effect, yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, so in working in theater, for example, I was really blessed to be a part of some very significant performing arts works that were born and bred and nurtured in Baltimore that landed on Broadway. And one such play was Thoughts of a Colored Man. And it had some roots in Maryland as the playwright. I think he went to Frostburg, and his family were HBCU grads, and so like Morgan and stuff. It's like it had a deep Baltimore resonance, and so Baltimore Center Stage put Thoughts of a Colored Man on, and I worked with the playwright, and I worked with the producing team, and I sat in a room with Taye Diggs as he was a part of the producing team early on, and was able to share. I think people don't realize, maybe some people do, but don't realize like this play, he had written it. It took 10 years of reiterating versions of the play to get it shaped enough to come out of workshop, land at center stage, be workshopped further, and go on to Broadway. This was like not an overnight process.
Like true labor of love.
True labor of love of the play. And so he had references in the play from when he first wrote it that were literally no longer relevant at the time that we went to, got it on stage.
Yeah.
Which, interestingly, my sports background wound up helping with, because there was a scene, an entire scene in the play where one of the actors, they were Black men, different walks of life. One of them was an athlete. And he had this really powerful scene about how challenging and hard it was being a top-level athlete, but having to, not be paid for his work. By the time he goes to do this play, NILs are in it, and people are being paid in college sports. So we had to shift that line. Right. But anyway, I say all this to say that Thoughts of a Colored Man, the building that play and seeing it on stage was phenomenal to me because of the impact, but I actually hated it. So I just did not like the play at all.
Really?
No. I didn't like it. It was, but to be fair, I don't know if they were talking to me, and that's fine.
Yeah.
Because it's really, so I remember going to see it on opening night, and keep in mind, at that point, I could recite all the lines. I'd seen the play a gazillion times in workshopping and getting it there along the way. But I went to see it with my husband and one of his really good friends, and I sat behind them, and they are Black men, and they saw themselves on stage for the first time in a way that they actually found it to be one of the most powerful on-stage experiences that they'd ever had, and they thought it was brilliant, and they thought it was representative of them, and it made them feel good. And so afterwards, I was like, I hated it. I did not like the play. And they said, we loved it. And then we went to dinner, and we spent 2 hours just talking about it.
Yeah.
And I think that's what theater is about.
100% agree with you.
I get to not like it. You get to love it. We get to discuss it.
Exactly.
And we get to figure out what the impact is.
Oh, those are the best. I have some of my most memorable kind of post-movie or post whatever kind of conversations are when, we're all butting heads. And we all have a different point of view about what it is, and we like certain parts or don't like others. But yeah, that's sort of
That's the beauty.
the beauty, 100%. I wanted to bring it back to your work as CEO here at Create Baltimore. That role started for you last fall,
Yeah.
and it's wild that it's been almost a year.
It's a pretty fast, slow year.
What a fast, slow year. What a perfect way to describe it.
Yes.
But I'd just like to hear a little bit about how the relationship with
Sure.
you and Create Baltimore began, and yeah, just what it's been like over the past year or so.
Yeah, sure. So, my relationship with the organization didn't start when I became the CEO. I had uh, served on the board of the organization, and I had actually how I came to be on the board was as after a conversation with Mayor Scott. I was deeply interested in serving his administration in a philanthropic capacity on a board or commission where I could lend my expertise and my passion to the city in a lane that I had some background. And so I had a couple of choices where I shared with Mayor Scott, like, you can put me here, here, or here. And these are truly in community service and philanthropic capacities. And with obviously being in the arts being my, this is my 1A. And then the others are like 1B, 1C. So I serve on some other commissions for him that are important to me as well, like the Mayor's Workforce Commission, Workforce Advisory Commission, because I'm deeply care about Baltimoreans and economic stability and all that stuff. And again, my husband has these companies where we employ a lot of people, and I want to help get more people to work. So I had like a couple of things I felt like I could do with art and culture being number one. And I was eventually appointed to the board of BOPA. And it was serving on a board is very different from being inside the organization, and the roles are different and distinct than they should be. Mm-hmm. And so I think that I had a particular lens as a board member and also a particular responsibility as a board member that's very different from that day in November when I was asked to step in as CEO, as the chair of the board at that time. And I felt in that moment that because I had being on the board, I was in the rooms where the organization was preparing to transition into being absorbed or dissolving. Mm-hmm. I felt very strongly that it didn't have to be that way. And so the conversation became, what can I do to fix it? Mm-hmm. And I will do, and I think I can. And so the conversations that I had initially, and I'm going to give all the credit to Mayor Scott and his team, who, when I said, okay, it looks like I'm going to be the interim CEO for a second, it may have been a panicked look in my eyes, but he was just like, take your time. There's no rush. And because it was a rush before. It was, you've got 90 days.
Was. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so the space to take our time empowered me to dig in and do the best that I could, because the goal in November and December and January was to set the next CEO up for success and not have them inherit any of the problems that had plagued the organization. So I had a very defined set of things I wanted to accomplish, with literally the last one being help search for the permanent CEO. But I was like, but I would not leave them in a place to have a CEO that's being given a mess.
I have to agree, as a person working on the inside, seeing some of those kind of tumultuous situations play out in real time, I was always impressed by that, like, we can do it, or I can do it sort of mentality. Like, I think that was clear from the start, and something that, at least for me personally, was really inspiring, I think, to see that kind of approach given the circumstances. There was still a little bit of like light at the end of the tunnel that I think we could all sort of see. And I know we all really appreciated that. So thank you.
Yeah. And thank you and thanks to the staff, because I'll be honest, what happened, again, board level, I didn't really know any of you because that wasn't the dynamic, right? But after I got in and I kept meeting just one brilliant person after another in their lanes who were just like, just kind of looking around like, these people are brilliant. The city doesn't want to let this go.
Right.
These people are like coming from every little corner of the place, punching way above our weight class and just getting stuff done. I was like, oh my gosh, these people are sharp. These people have passion and they're very, like, the interesting thing about most of the people that work here is that they're creatives.
Right.
On top of just being like sharp in business. And
Exactly.
so that was like really like eye-opening for me. And I was just like, oh, we're not gonna waste this. These people are talented. So it became really important to me to fight for the people that were here in this building, making the magic happen without, the perception from you all was that no one was appreciating it. And I needed y'all to know that somebody was appreciating it.
Right. Yeah. Well, hey, and sort of keeping with that fighting for creatives mentality, I wanted to touch upon something that I know at least I'm personally very excited about, which is this transition that's going on right now between BOPA into Create Baltimore, which is a long time coming and I think a very, very refreshing thing. So I was really hoping that you could give us a little bit of insight into sort of how this decision was made and also why now? Like, why is now the best time for something like this?
Well, I was thinking about the function of the city's creative agency and arm, and as a quasi-government agency / nonprofit that serves the city. And we were misaligned functionally and visually from the other quasis that do similar work. Like Live Baltimore has a very distinct name and identity to get people to come to live, want to live, stay and live in Baltimore. Visit Baltimore has a very distinct identity for tourism in our city. And what we do is similarly structured organization for the creativity and the creative hub of the city. And I want people to know that they can depend on us for that. And that's what we're going to do, is that we're going to, create is a verb, and it actually just sort of codifies our mission in 2 words: simplifying, beautifying, giving us like a charge, and describing exactly who we are.
And it seems like, especially with some of the things that are going on at a more of a federal, like a national level, just in terms of funding and cuts, especially, and the trickle down, that a rebrand or a refresh, whatever we want to call it, like especially at a local level, is timely. Yes. It's needed.
And for the why now, it's also important for our organization and for the city to be able to think of us as refreshed and rebranded. I think it's important for people to see that as well.
Right, especially with new leadership and some new faces, myself included, you know, that there is a desire, it seems, with all of us to shed some of the experiences that came before us and look to a better working relationship with the public and with the city.
And the city has such a very visible now, because I'm not going to say that the city was not invested in arts and culture before, but now they have a very visible investment in arts and culture. And that visible investment in arts and culture includes the mayor's new Office of Arts, Culture, and Entertainment.
Right.
And we get to work alongside that organization, and they are structured to smooth the path a lot for us in terms of being the engine and permitting and building festivals and all that stuff. And so that commitment to have an office dedicated to arts and culture allows us as the nonprofit arm to go out and raise funds, to fund artists, to fund artistic endeavors and programs, to like nurture the cultural, backbone of the city in a way that for sure is supported from a bureaucratic standpoint, because there's a whole office there to do it, and that's amazing.
Right, and the independence that
and then we get to keep, and we're allowed the independence to be the support for artists that they can depend on.
Agreed. Yeah, I think that's such an important part of our designation as a nonprofit.
Yes.
What do you think changes about BOPA under this new Create Baltimore name moving forward? And generally speaking, what stays the same?
So we have not shifted our mission. That will stay the same. One of my biggest goals is to elevate our profile so that people think of how important creatives are when they're thinking about things like economic development. And when they're thinking about, I want to be at the table when they're looking at new developments that are going to elevate Baltimore, when they're looking at economic drivers, when they're looking at sports events, when they're looking at education processes like the blueprint for Maryland. I think that there's never a but-or in terms of including creativity and culture and arts. It's a yes and. So I want to be at the table with decision makers that ordinarily have not considered having an artist or an arts and culture perspective at the table. We're going to be at the table. So one of my goals is to make sure that we're included in those conversations. And so that's what I'm working on.
That's so exciting too, because as the thing I feel like that always gets cut first or is underappreciated, arts, the way that things look, the way that they make you feel is such an important glue that connects all these things that we were talking about.
Sure.
So I think that, like you're saying, being at the table and being a part of that conversation is so huge, and I'm really excited to see how we can connect some of those dots for people.
You tell me you want more restaurants, I tell you that's art.
Exactly.
You tell me you want more playgrounds and parks, I tell you that's art.
Exactly.
And so those are the things those are the places I want to be at the table.
Yeah, and in some ways it's sort of a shift in the way that fundamentally we think about how we grow as a city. In my mind's eye, I can just sort of picture a version of your normal playground, for instance, but then I can think of the version where an artist was incorporated from the beginning.
Yep.
And then what does the playground look like?
Correct.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Then that's exciting.
Yes.
So dreaming big, like no limitations really. What do you think Create Baltimore looks like 5 years from now? Is there a dream of a future iteration, like we've been talking about these iterations?
So absolutely. I think that one of the more gritty things, and it didn't make me feel good, that we had to do was like we shrunk in workforce size, and with my goal of more seats at the table and having us have a voice in places like economic development and things like that, I would like to see the organization be bigger.
Right. It's like you can get so much more work done when you've got the boots on the ground to be able to facilitate the work.
Yes.
So I agree. That would be huge.
Yep. I'd like to see major organizations feeling comfortable with integrating us and our thought processes and our work that we're doing into everything that they do. And I'm also very interested in more public-private partnerships for us. We learned at last year's, it's still this year, at 2025's Artscape. My mind's in 2026 Artscape already. But we learned in 2025's Artscape that there is an appetite for us to serve artists in support of their work almost as a gallerist and help them get their work out there in places that haven't been traditional. And so we've been working on some partnerships with places, even outside of the city, but places that still rely on Baltimore for their culture. So we know that Baltimore County relies on Baltimore City for a great deal of their culture. They don't have a Meyerhoff Symphony Hall. They don't have a Ravens Stadium.
No.
We're all in this together. And we've had conversations with our counterparts in Baltimore County on how this organization can help support art and artists in the entire greater Baltimore area. One of our Artscape sponsors decided that they don't want to stop at just sponsoring Artscape. They now want Baltimore Artists Works in all of their branches of their bank. And their branches of their bank are everywhere from Cecil County all the way down into, I think, Anne Arundel. And so the point is that we're now developing relationships that allow us to expand how artists are seen and where they are seen, and also helping them make a living.
That's great. And even though the name is Create Baltimore, it seems like there's not really like a limitation there. It's just Create Baltimore maybe as the driving force, but that it can spread. And
absolutely. That's the idea. You know, I've been having conversations with the country of Tanzania in Africa and the country of Nigeria about their art, about their versions of Scout art fair, and why we should not be exchanging culturally with them. So we're not going to stop with Baltimore. You're going to see Baltimore in Tanzania. You're going to see our artists everywhere.
That's incredible. Yeah, I love that way of thinking. Right? Yeah. And that reminds me too of the way that an artist would think.
Absolutely.
Right? That there's no box. Unless you put yourself in it.
We currently have a Nigerian American artist in Bromo. Their studio is there, and their work truly exemplifies tying Baltimore and their home country. And so it's important for us to lift that up and potentially see like the work that they're doing here that also ties back to Africa. And I think that's brilliant, and we want to amplify that.
Agreed. Super important.
Yeah.
So lastly, and hopefully this is kind of a fun one, leading up to this brand relaunch, we've been asking people to tell us how they create Baltimore. So here's the $1 million question, Robyn. How do you create Baltimore?
Wow. I like to create connection. And so one of the things that my friends always tell me that I am, it's just a natural thing that I like to do. I like brilliant people and ideas to connect with each other. And I don't always have to be in the middle of the connection either. I can make the connection and step out and watch 2 things or 2 people or 3 things and 5 people make magic happen. And so I create Baltimore by creating connections that otherwise might not connect to each other, but I'm going to find a way to make you all connect the idea, connect the people, and I think that builds a community. And so that's my thing. I create through connection.
Well, firstly, that's beautiful. I also wanted to add, I think you've mentioned to the staff here before that you also are great at compromise.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that is...
My husband would disagree.
Also, another way that I've seen you create Baltimore here has just been by the way that you're able to, again, bring people together. So kudos to you.
Thank you. My favorite word is, I love collaborating, and I don't necessarily think that you can win without it. So compromise and collaboration go hand in hand.
Obviously, thank you so much for joining me in the studio today. I just wanted to give you the chance to let listeners know what's the best way that they can connect with you, and also how can they connect with Create Baltimore going forward?
First of all, we are on the interwebs. We are our social media is like, you got to follow us because for a couple of reasons. One, our social media is fire. What I love about our social is that you're going to find out what we're doing, but you're also going to find out what other artists and culture shifters are doing through us. Mm-hmm. That's really important. And then on my personal social, I'm very active on it. but you're going to get a lot of like my kids and my cooking. But you're welcome to come along on the journey. It is at Mrs. Media Mom. And so that's where I am. You can find me on Instagram almost anytime. You're going to get a lot of volleyball and kids sports and me cooking. But I'm very responsive there as well.
Well, I know you are super busy. Thank you, though, so much for joining the podcast, and can't wait to chat with you soon.
Thank you for having me, Stuart. This is a great, great outlet for creatives who are thriving. So I really appreciate this podcast. Thank you.
Thanks so much to Robyn for joining the podcast, and thanks to you for listening. Remember, if you're a creative person with a story to share, reach out to me at srustin@promotioninarts.org to be featured on the podcast. And remember, when creatives thrive, we all rise.